Hello everybody, this is going to be one of those timey wimey videos. I was planning to repot this Trident maple this spring, but I've turned my back and it's leafed out, and so I've decided that I'm not going to do that. This tree, I tried to air layer. If you look in the end screen and in the description below, you'll see that there's a playlist which will include the videos showing where I try to air layer this tree, and those air layers are here. Okay, so if you've watched those videos, you'll see that I was entirely unsuccessful in growing roots on these two trees, but I did get a considerable amount of callus, which showed promise. So I popped them into a pot of just ordinary regular potting compost, and over winter, and they've stayed alive and they're leafing up, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they will take as basically hardwood cuttings and will start to form roots over this summer. I'm not going to pull them out of the pot to see if there are any roots, because I think it's too premature. Usually they will produce their leaves first, and then well, that's using the stored energy within the wood itself, and then as the leaves start to photosynthesize, it will produce some roots. So that's what I'm hoping from these two air layers. So fingers crossed, I might have 3 Trident maples by the end of the year. Of course, they might just shrivel up and come to naught, but we will see. The original tree, although I quite like its form and its shape, the Nabari was not very good at the beginning, and hasn't improved any. I have this very odd root that comes straight out of the front of the trunk here, another one at the same level coming out of the side here, and then nothing on this side till we get down to about an inch below the surface of the compost, and nothing at all at the back. So although I'm not going to root prune this tree, what I am going to do is try and encourage it to grow some more roots below the subsurface, and as part of that I'm actually going to, do this now while I'm feeling brave, chop this root off. Okay, so that's completely severed that root, and I'm just going to leave it in place. There is a possibility that I might get some growth off of that, which might give me 4 trees, you never know. So let's move in a little bit closer, so you can see exactly what I've done. So I've completely severed that root, and I'm just going to let the tree continue to grow, and I'm hoping in response to having lost a root, it's going to throw out a lot more roots to compensate, and then next month, maybe middle of May, I will chop this remaining root here in exactly the same way, and again it may or may not shoot from the tip and act as a root cutting, but again hopefully the tree will compensate. As I say, it's got nothing in terms of roots at this height here. I was going to root prune it, as I said, and I might have found I had perfectly good roots down there anyway, but this is just by way of experiment. So there we go. So that's going to go back on the bench and just be growing on as per normal, and I'll film some bits and bobs of it through the year, and we'll come back later in the year and see how it's developed or not. It's the 22nd of May, and the Trident maple is just growing as if I'd never done anything with it, and so today I'm going to look at taking off this second high root. Let's get in there so you can see what I'm doing. So the tree is already healing up, beginning to heal up where the first root was removed. This root still seems fully alive. I have no sign of any buds popping on it, which, well, there's always and I wonder if that will happen rather than I know that's going to happen. So now I'm going to remove this second high root. Like so. And we will see how the tree responds with that over the year. Maybe these will grow as root cuttings, maybe they won't, but as I say, at the moment the tree seems not at all unhappy that I removed the first section of root. So yeah. And as for the well, the air layers that didn't actually root that I put in the pots as kind of hardwood cuttings, well, they've leafed up nicely. This one feels wobbly in the pot. This one a little firmer, but I don't know that they've actually got any root on. Again, it's the time will tell. I'm just going to keep growing them, and we will see. Maybe I've got a couple of free trees from that experiment, maybe I haven't. It's the 12th of June and the Trident maple is showing, well, not showing any reaction at all to the removal of this second surface root. The weeds are growing, which is a bit of a nuisance, but you know, gives you something to do, to pluck a weed here and pluck a weed there, and pluck a weed everywhere. So what am I going to do with this tree now? I'm going to cut back some of this tall growth at the top here. Let me just show you it's growing really well. So we just move up and in, and basically want to keep the growth compact in this area, so I'm just going to be chopping back these tall growths like so, and I'm going to try and strike these as cuttings if and I can. That won't be at a great loss if I can't. Some would say I already have too many trees, though I of course would disagree with them. So a quick 360 after that bit of work. Obviously this is a Timey Wimey video, I'm not going to end it here. It may in fact not end until next spring when I do a repot. So it might be 2022 by the time you see all this. So just for the record again, it is the 12th of June 2021. Speaking of cuttings, these two air layers, hardwood cuttings, they didn't actually develop roots, as you will have seen, only the callus, but they've been put into the pot as kind of hardwood cuttings with that callus on, and they're growing away. Far too early in their life to try pulling them out of the pot to see if they have rooted. I can only assume that they are, but if I try to get them out of the pot now, it would damage the roots, which are going to be young and weak and hair-like if there are any, but we shall see. Fingers crossed and all that. It's the 16th of July today. Hopefully this isn't too wobbly. I'm recording it on my phone again because we're about to eat in about 10 minutes, and I don't want to be messing about lugging the camera out here and setting it all up on the tripod, etc, etc, when I'm just going to do a few minutes work on this tree, and just thought it has not been phased even slightly. Well, perhaps it has, but you wouldn't know to look at it. It's growing away really strongly. I've removed these 2 roots this year, and the tree has not reacted noticeably in any way, shape or form. It's still growing out nice and strongly, and I'm just going to be nipping out some of these longer growths just to stop it getting out of hand. And even though, as I say, it's not, even though it's not responded badly to the trimming of these roots, I elected not to leaf prune it this year. I'm just keeping it trimmed to a vague bonsai tree shape. Yeah, it's still growing really well. It's the 9th of August and the Trident maple is growing really well. If a trifle one-sided, I'm going to have to turn it round on the bench, and this side gets the morning sun, that side gets the evening sun, rather than it being a front or back issue. It is a side-to-side issue. Also not getting enough sun at the back here, I don't believe. So, gonna have to reposition it on the bench, but I'm gonna give it a bit of a trimming and cut back some of these long shoots. And some of these pieces could be used for cuttings if you're so inclined. But all I'm doing at this point is a bit of formation pruning, keeping this tree in check, encouraging some back budding, etc. And hopefully get something that's beginning to look a little bit more like a tree. The chop of the roots still doesn't seem to have slowed it down too much. In fact, as the roots were this side, and this side is growing faster, they don't seem to have affected it at all, I guess. Still not a lot of growth from these, well, let's call them hardwood cuttings. A lot of growth from weeds, but they're still, well, I don't think they've rooted properly because they're still quite wibbly in the pot, but we'll keep going, and where there's life there's hope. So it's the 19th of September and the tree has developed quite nicely. We've got a relatively nice tree-shaped tree. It's fairly three-dimensional and very healthy. The removal of, or the chopping rather, of these roots at the base here doesn't seem to have caused the tree any hardship whatsoever. I don't see any signs of buds bursting making these root cuttings, but that's always possible. That may happen next spring. We will wait and see. Certainly it's not really slowed down this tree. The failed air layerings that I've been treating as hardwood cuttings, well, they've stayed alive. They're still a little bit wobbly in the pot, so I'm not convinced. They've put out lots of root, and they may or may not survive. It's still, if I had to pin it down, I would still say 70-30 on this one. It's still got quite a lot of leaf, though as I say, it's still a bit wobbly in the pot. The other one, and you may remember they had a big callus on the base when they were separated but no roots, has lost all its leaves on the side branches, which have died back, and I can see the top has died back to here, but it does still have some green leaves. So if I zoom in, you can see it's looking very sorry for itself, and I don't know, it's actually a bit firmer in the pot than the other one. If I had to pin that one down, well, I'd give it 2 chances, live or die, 50-50. We will see. We'll mollycoddle it a bit over the winter and see if it springs back or not. It's the 20th of October, and I'm fairly certain that this hardwood cutting has not taken. All the leaves have now dropped off. The trunk is looking a little bit blackened at the top here, but it still has some bend and some give, so never say never. Obviously I'm not going to throw it away. We will see if it does anything next spring. The other one of the two that I took is still growing, well, I say still growing. The leaves are starting to turn various shades of yellows and oranges, and so it's going into a dormancy mode, which will hopefully be pushing some roots down into this pot. It's still a little bit wibbly, but not as wibbly as it was, so that's a good sign. So maybe I've got 1 out of 2. We will see. The main parent plant is still growing and is barely beginning to show any autumn colour at all yet. So I won't film that now. I'll leave that one for another week or so, so that you can see the colours. It's the 5th of November today, and it's a glorious sunny day. I'm going to wrap up this Timey Wimey video on this Trident maple here. It's doing its glorious autumnal thing, mostly shades of yellow, but some oranges and some reds as well, which is nice. Where will we go with this next? I will be repotting it probably back into this seed tray again. These roots that I chopped away earlier in the video for you and earlier in the year for me, I think they've died. I've done a thumbnail test, and it's brown underneath, so they've not reacted as a root cutting, but this wound here, for example, is healed up really quite nicely, and is closing over. This one again with thumbnail test there is actually some green under that one, so maybe. But anyway, I shall be pulling those out when I repot this tree, and if it's still showing signs of life, maybe I'll pot that one up. In the meantime, I'm going to continue to enjoy these autumnal colours and put it back on the bench until spring, when there will be further videos. So thank you so much for watching. Do the like, subscribe, comment thing if it takes your fancy. But most of all, please look after yourselves. Stay safe, everybody.